Hello everyone, another video here on the channel. Today's topic is the androidization or robotization, however you want to call it, of people on Instagram, right? How people end up turning into androids, robots, NPCs, anyway, whatever term you prefer for someone who displays reactive, mechanical, robotic, and lifeless behaviors in response to certain stimuli thrown into the environment. I ask those who haven't subscribed to the channel yet to please subscribe, leave a like if you enjoy the content, and feel free to use the comment section. Yeah, before it's extremely necessary to give an introduction here in this video before we get into Instagram itself. So it's very clear that society as a whole, right, is already pretty androidized, isn't it? Davey from the channel Okay a Vida, whom I admire a lot, right? I recommend that you subscribe to Davey's channel afterwards. I'll even leave the link to his channel in the description because he's an extremely intelligent, sarcastic, funny guy who offers great reflections on society. Yeah, he uses this term androidization a lot, right? Some people use the term NPC, right? Which would be that RPG game character that always does the same thing. And other people use the term robotization, right? Anyway, I think I'll use robotization and androidization more here to talk in the video. Yeah, if you look at any kind of forum or on YouTube about any topic, politics, economics, music, etc., there are certain types of comments where the guy or the woman, anyway, tries to seem smart, right? But they're actually showing androidized behavior there, right? Yeah, usually it's the people who watch content who are in the audience who tend to do that, right? Yeah, I've made some mistakes like that in the past, and over time I realized it. Nowadays, I think very carefully before making any kind of comment. Even though in these videos, from time to time, there might be some contradiction, some ambiguous or confusing information because I talk here for 15, 20 minutes and I repeat this several times. Sometimes it's impossible not to let something slip. That's a bit contradictory, right? We are human beings and we make mistakes, but androidization is funny because it will catch the android, right? That famous Dunning-Kruger syndrome, right? He thinks he's much smarter than he actually is, right? He thinks he believes his abilities are really greater than his actual existence. And I'll give as an example here some comments that have already come up around here from other channels and on various topics I've discussed, not just on the internet, but also at barbecues with friends, in conversation circles, at bars, etc., right? Yeah, there were two comments here on the channel that caught my attention, right? They were comments from two men. They didn't mean any harm or anything, but it's the kind of comment where, well, the person assumes that I would be so dumb as not to notice this, and that everyone who liked and commented on the video also didn't notice, and only he who is supposedly smart noticed it, right? Yeah, I'm making this introduction because you'll see when we get to Instagram, right? You'll see how interesting the parallel is. There was a video I made about why women are inflationary and so on, and I was explaining a bit about inflation, right? And like, yeah, I think even a 14-year-old knows that what causes inflation is an excess of supply, an excess of money supply in the economy, right? The big printers, well, I even talk about the big printers later in the video, but at the moment there was at the beginning of the video I mentioned, right, who benefits from inflation, which is just a handful of big speculators in Brazil. In other words, I criticize Brazil's rigged capitalism, right? And that it's just a handful of people who issue private debt securities, debentures, who make money, etc., right? Then a guy comes along and says, "Oh, you really know a lot about women, about Instagram, about the scene, but when it comes to economics, you don't know anything." The guy wanted to explain to me what causes inflation, right? I mean, everyone knows what causes inflation. So I'm betting on everyone's intelligence here, meaning I'm not going to state the obvious. I'm not going to say the sky is blue, right? So when I'm talking about who benefits from inflation, I think everyone already knows what causes inflation, the main reason, right? Besides the rise of the dollar and so on. But the main thing is really the excess supply of money in the economy. So then the guy sees it because in his mind, maybe he thought I was some leftist guy, a Marxist or something. People really go off on these tangents because it's that kind of criticism. You don't know anything about economics, like as if I were pro state, right? Man, it's just these wild ideas people come up with, and that's such an android like behavior. Just like there was another guy in the video I made about the single women bubble. He wrote this huge comment to say my video was good, but that he said I committed an anachronism because since I speak a bit fast, there were a couple of times I mixed up prepositions. Instead of saying women of the 90s, I said women in the 90s, but I said it wrong, right? So it was just a slip of the tongue. But that video got almost like 3,000 likes, 20,000 views. Everyone saw it, noticed it, and treated it like a normal typo, as if I were writing, but it was just a slip of the tongue and nobody said anything about it. Then this guy comes along and says that I implied, right, that I committed an anachronism because I said that Orkut and MSN existed in the 90s, right? I was talking about women of the 90s, and then instead of saying of, I messed up and said in. But everyone understood that I was talking about women of the 90s. The guy came and said that I was saying that social networks already existed in the 90s, Orkut, Facebook, etc. So, like, and he came with this long message, a moral lesson and all that, right? Yeah, and this kind of behavior, doesn't just happen here on YouTube. Of course, I'm just mentioning this, okay? I'm not, the guys didn't come with bad intentions. They came in that tone of saying, hey, this guy here, he's saying something cool, but it's not right. He said something silly here, you know? I even said, look, I actually think I might say something silly here and there because I talk for 20 minutes straight, but that definitely not, because you'd have to assume I'm really dumb if I thought inflation isn't caused by the money supply, and that in the 90s there were social networks, right? For God's sake, right? So, okay, now other examples you also see, for instance, yeah, people in Brazil, they make sweeping judgments. So, for example, like this criticism I made of this rigged capitalism, this marked card game where only a handful of people win in Brazil. You criticize and people freak out thinking you're criticizing Ludwig von Mises, the liberal school, libertarianism, etc. You're actually criticizing the rigged game there between big corporations and the state, right? Just because you criticize the financial market, it means you're some kind of Marxist or something like that. That's how people think. Yeah, for example, if you praise Olavo de Carvalho's works when it comes to Aristotle, the theory of discourse frameworks, etc., the guy will say you believe in Pepsi, abortion, he'll come with those kinds of arguments. Then there are other guys, usually people from the left, who will say that. Then there will be people on the right, and you'll say, man, I think Jesse Souza's perspective on social inequality in Brazil is interesting, referring to slavery and all that. I think he has an interesting demographic and social reading of Brazil. No, but then that guy is you're a communist or whatever, there will already be people saying that, right? Yeah, so then you go and say, man, the podcast by I think Flavio Morgenstern's podcasts are interesting. Then someone will come and say, wait, no, but Morgenstern is this and whatever. He said this about the vaccine and so on, right? Then again, you say, no, but Clovis Moraes de Dede, Clovis de Barros Filho has a cool course on the classics of literature. No, but that guy is also a communist. So, yeah, in Brazil, it's complicated because this androidization of people, if you mention Abin or some other channel and so on, say, hey, this guy's channel is cool. He explained this here. No, but this guy sells courses. No, but this guy is a simp. No, but this guy is too extreme. So basically, you can't reference anyone anymore, right? Yeah, notice that it's a very small number of people who do this, okay? I'm not criticizing here. It's less than 1%, 0.1 out of like 200 comments. So about 0.5% are comments like this, right? But but why aren't there so many comments like that on my channel? Oh, it's because my content is good, it's wonderful. No, it's because I don't share that many personal opinions here, right? People give a lot of compliments and all that, but if I had to name a quality of my channel strengths, if someone asked me, look, I think I'm good at selecting slices of reality. I think I can bring out the reality of what these guys are seeing, what women are doing to them, how men are behaving, how Instagram messed up relationships, all that, how relationships were in the past, how they are today. I'm good at selecting slices of reality. So I don't really leave much room for that kind of comment. But obviously, from time to time here, I'll make a reference, a quote, or share my own opinion, right? Even though I don't really share many personal opinions here on my channel, because this thing about stimuli and environments is more of an anthropological and social matter, and it doesn't really fit so much analytical stuff. But every now and then I'll say something, obviously, right? So moving on, guys. This androidization doesn't just happen in those niches where if you praise a guy, an author, or a politician, people will just go and bash you, right? Because like in Brazil, everything has to be total criticism, either for or against, right? That's why I avoid it. Sometimes someone asks, "Oh, what do you think about this or whatever?" Right? I just give it a like or something, or I'll give a more vague answer and so on. even in person, right? People come up to me and say, "Hey, what do you think about this guy? Oh, what do you think about that candidate?" and so on. I've already received countless invitations to speak well of certain candidates, especially in municipal and state elections. I always turn them down, right? I always refuse because even if I see value in some candidates, I know people will misinterpret it, and for what they'd offer me, whether money or recognition, is just not worth it. Unlike this YouTube channel here, which I'm really enjoying, it's a pleasure to be making these videos for you, right? So yeah, I just use that as an example, okay? No, I'm not trying to play the victim here either. If I have the channel open and I say at the beginning of the video, feel free to use the comment section, then I have to put up with the haters. So let me handle those haters, okay? Whether it's guys making snarky comments, assuming I'm dumb and don't know something, or feminists, which is just a few, but they do show up here and all that, right? Anyway, I'm just mentioning this, for us, and after almost 11 minutes here, also because it's not a very long topic, I think I can wrap this up in 5 to 7 minutes. So, the Androidization of Instagram is as follows. This is really more of an introduction video, and there's not much content right now, right? Because I think the introduction needed to be said. So, the Androidization on Instagram, right, it works exactly through these same stimuli and rewards. Yeah, some bloggers will put out there in the environment the most famous people in society, actresses, both international and Brazilian, right? Like sub celebrities, people from Big Brother, etc. They'll put out the kind of thinking that women are supposed to follow, right? Sometimes it'll be a mindset more focused on career. Sometimes it'll be I'm going to talk about both women and men, okay? But talking about women first, yeah, when it comes to career, sometimes the mindset is about self love, sometimes about promiscuity, sometimes it's about monogamy, sometimes it's about being family oriented, start a family, etc. So people keep throwing out a bunch of contradictory messages, right? And the androids in this case would be these women who are influenced, just regular girls, the kind you and I both know, who unfortunately fall for this nonsense, right? They even start to imitate behaviors, use expressions, mannerisms, sayings, and catchphrases that these bloggers use, right? Yeah, so all of this has, well, it has an effect, right? It has backing from what's coming from above, right? It's a kind of mimicry, right? It's a behavior that comes from the top, very hierarchical, right? And women start copying it. In other words, they act thinking they're thinking for themselves. The other day, a girl said to me, right? She was venting and all that, I don't know. Yeah, I was talking to her and she just said to me, right? Oh, but there's no problem with me being single at 25. I'm not going to stress about that anymore. She was venting about her last relationship. A girl I used to hook up with and all, I was chatting with her. It had been a while since I talked to her. We started talking and in the end she said, "Oh, and whatever, and it's all good," right? But like this, and it's all good is a phrase that popped up on Instagram that some underworld operators threw out there recently, which is meant to calm down those women who are still single and frustrated, right? Oh, everything has its time, blah blah blah, and it's all good, right? Pages like Quebrando, Taboo, and so on have already shared this, and like you see her repeating a behavior that was put out there by people with infinitely superior intelligence on social media, right? And the person becomes like an android just repeating that, right? So, like this thing of taking pictures, you go to a restaurant, keep taking pictures of the food and pay more attention to the photo than to the food. You go on a trip, post 20, 50 stories because the influencer does that, but the influencer gets paid to do it, right? Yeah, so like photos of some nail polishes, etc. No, and this thing about fashion and all that, I take back what I said about the nail polish, okay? I messed up with that one just now, okay? I'm not even going to edit this out. I'll just say I messed up because when it comes to fashion, I think Instagram is actually a good thing. It's even an interesting platform, right? For the women out there. So this thing about clothes, about fashion, I'm not going to get into that, okay? But when it comes to photo angles, travel, how to deal with your boyfriend, what to say, screenshots they see of women, humiliating men, that's the kind of thing a woman will want to use on some guy if she wants to, dump him or something, right? So it's a really childish thing. But you can see it's a complete androidization, right? And for men now, the androidization is more about these fake gurus, right? Yeah, internet millionaires. Not fake because these guys really are millionaires, right? It's just that you can't copy them. You'll see a lot of guys out there who take on a certain lifestyle, act like they're close friends with some of those big sharks in digital marketing. These digital marketing guys are really clever. These guys have an ability to sell products to the masses that, my friends, honestly, I admire them for it. These guys are money making machines, but they're not replicable, like I said. Trying to copy these digital marketing gurus, these guys have unique skills. It's like trying to copy Messi playing soccer. You can buy a book by Messi teaching you how to play soccer, or by Cristiano Ronaldo, right? So there's no argument on the channel, Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Yeah, that's it. You just can't copy these guys, okay? You can't copy these guys. So yeah, men end up getting loboto. It's like a lobotomization or even an androidization that happens to men wanting to live the lives of these guys. I've seen it. So one of these famous digital marketing guys goes there, talks badly about some place, and then people go and start insulting that place, a restaurant, a hotel, etc., as if they themselves had gone through some bad experience, some poor service. These guys really take on that life. So yeah, there are a lot of men who are androidized too, right? And in politics, oh my god, it's from the people on the right, the patriots, all the way to the people on the left and the not him crowd, right? So you'll see androids everywhere, you know? If you want to see androids, go check out the Android cattle. Go look at those Bolsogatas profiles, right? I'm going to make a video just talking about right-wing women in the future, but honestly, there are a lot of androids there talking, you know? There's the uncle, the Tio Zapianismo, the WhatsApp uncle is pretty android too, the big boomers, right? So there are a lot of androidized men too. Men are usually more into the political and financial stuff, right? And women are more into the relationship stuff and in pseudo spirituality, right? Because if you want real spirituality, the last place in the world you'll find true spirituality is on Instagram, right? There are serious people who have spirituality profiles on Instagram. But what gets shared to the masses as spirituality, whether it's Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, or even Taoism, is just a sham, okay? It's all a fraud. So that's the message, okay? Because androidization, that is this behavior where you react with a ready-made speech, and one of the main characteristics, just to wrap this up, of androidization is that these guys, and these women too, they think they're thinking for themselves. And they're just repeating what either some lacrador, in the case of a more left-leaning thought, or some cattleman, you know, some manipulator of the masses, some political figure, or maybe some clever blogger, right? Someone, someone smarter than them led them to do this. They're acting like androids and robots and think they're thinking for themselves, okay? Take care. See you next time.